Parents of Reddit, when in your eyes did your children become adults? My wife passed away when my son was almost 14. Knowing that my wife's condition was terminal, I worried that he would have severe difficulties after she passed. However, it was I who had a breakdown, and my son took care of me for months afterwards. I'll never forget. I remember each of my stepsons' faces when I told them their mom had passed. It's then when I realized I wish I had passed instead, but that they needed me. I would often break down and cry doing stupid silly things like the dishes. I think they saw me once and I'm proud of them. They sort of, in a way I can't explain, started to act like we were a team. When my daughter started wanting to pay her own way when I would take her to the movies or out to eat, I'm still not used to this concept. It wasn't so much when I considered him an adult, but it was one of those, when did he get old enough for this to be a thing moments. For part of his Christmas present during his senior year of high school, he wanted to take an avalanche safety and rescue course. So I called to get him registered. The woman on the phone was taking all the relevant information and said, "I'm going to mail the paperwork to you. He'll need to fill out the forms and bring them, and there's a release for you to sign." Then she stopped and said, "Oh, never mind. He won't need your permission since he'll have turned 18 by then." Realizing my baby boy could sign up for something like an avalanche rescue course without my permission was a big deal. The fact that he wanted to take an avalanche rescue course is pretty responsible and proactive in and of itself. My son is 30 years old and has been a surgery resident for 3 years now. I still mostly see him as my baby boy. I haven't gotten to see him much as I would like since he went to medical school at 23, so a lot of the maturation he has gone through is lost on me. But one Thanksgiving 2 years ago, he was on a call and had to leave in the middle of dinner for an emergency operation. The way he confidently got out of his chair, stood up tall, and put on his jacket before kissing me and the other family members goodbye, knowing an hour later he would be operating on somebody, was really a wow moment for me. It was one of the first times I had seen him as a grown, responsible man with a place in this world besides just being my baby boy. One of my 3 daughters is 8 years old. Last Halloween, we went out trick-or-treating, and we got back home early because their bags were full and it was getting pretty cold. Someone knocks on the door, obviously a kid, and my wife and I look at each other with the "oh no" face. We forgot to get candy to hand out. My 8-year-old read our faces, grabs her stash, opens the door, and gives a big heaping handful of treats to Cinderella and calls her Your Majesty. The other 2, 10 and 3, wordlessly proceed to do the same thing. We spent the next 2 hours on the porch, handing out my daughter's candy to the neighborhood kids till their bags were empty. No one ever complained. I was so proud of this selfless act. The next day after work, I went to Walmart for the biggest bucket I could find and filled it full of candy. Not the crappy Double Bubbles and Tootsie Rolls either. I told them how much I loved them and how proud I was of what they did that night. They're still children, but that was the most adult thing I've ever seen them do. Wow, I know 0 children that age who would do something so selfless. I've 4 kids. 3 are 27, 1 is 22. I would say that it came on me slowly that they were now adults. No one particular incident, but more a series of choices they made that were ones where they put aside current happiness for long-term rewards. They were making adult decisions in adult ways and deserve to be treated as adults. Of course, it is amusing to me to see them act in childish ways anytime they all get together, because no matter how adult they are, they will always be siblings. I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. The first time all 3 of us were home at the same time after I went to college, my dad kind of teared up and said how neat it was to see the 3 of us interacting as adults. We then broke out the board games and insulted each other merrily. Good times. Not a parent, but my mom told me about the moment she realized I was an adult. I got a job in the oil field out of college. I spent the first 2 years of my career working in the field out of my hometown. After that, I moved across the country for an office job. When I came home for Thanksgiving, I caught a flight home right after work. She was incredibly surprised to see me in nice clothes, a nice jacket, and a clean-cut hair. In her words, "I was expecting to see you, but not a grown-up version of you." She took a few seconds to recognize me. It felt good. Just ask my father this. I'm 22. His response was he thought I was grown up when I went on a rugby tour when I was 16. But when he thought I wasn't a child anymore was at 20 when I helped build my grandmother's garage with him, and he was like, he can actually help. There's that dad moment where a young boy's curious about what daddy's doing out in the yard, and it looks cool, but you get bored watching and go back inside and your mom sees you watching TV. She tells you to go outside and help your dad, and he's just standing there going, "What do I do with him that he won't hurt himself?" Then he gives us a blunt object to hold and maybe pass to him. You're standing there filled with pride at knowing you have responsibility. You are a man and hold on to that thing with eyes full of determination, a creased brow, and a serious look at the world around, like, yeah, we're men, holding things. My son was home for a few weeks from the Marine Corps. During this time, he was injured pretty severely in a car accident when a drunk driver hit his vehicle. While injured from the collision and waiting for the authorities to arrive, my son pulled the unconscious man, who had just dealt him injuries that would require over a year of physical therapy, from his vehicle to make sure he was okay. My daughter went away to school and lived in an apartment with other students. She came home about a month later for the weekend, and I noticed she cleaned the kitchen after using it. Her bed was made and her room tidy every morning. She never would have done that a month prior. I was so stunned that she changed her habits so quickly. She grew up quickly. Sometimes it is best when growth is forced upon you, because no one else is going to do the dirty, annoying tasks for you anymore. My daughter dropped out of college at age 18 to marry her 27-year-old boyfriend. She would not listen to anything her mother or I had to say about it. Because she had no college degree or work experience, she spent over a year working for a telephone answering service. Then she came back to us and said, "I screwed up. I shouldn't have dropped out. Can you help me go to nursing school?" We did help her, as much as we could, about $800 a month. Her husband didn't like it though, and presented her with an ultimatum. Either me or nursing school. She divorced his sorry ass and went on to become an intensive care unit RN. When she got her first ICU job, that's when I realized she was now an adult. After 10 years experience, she makes about $80,000 a year. Her ex-husband is making about $23,000. May he roast in hell. Why the hell wouldn't a person want his spouse to work towards increasing her income potential? Good for her for leaving that dude. As a child of wonderful parents, this topic has been of interest to me lately, as I've been going through some medical weirdness. Informing my mother that the MRI found a bone tumor that looked aggressive and I would be going to get a CT, bone scan, and biopsy to see if it's malignant or not was totally fine. She essentially just said, "Oh wow, that's awful. Glad you're on top of your appointments. Let me know how it goes." She understood that I've got it under control and can handle it. On the other hand, my boyfriend's parents, boyfriend and I have been together 3.5 years, living together for 2.5 years, freaked the thing out and insisted that his father come to my appointments with me because we needed an adult involved. This was shocking to me, since my mother had never doubted my position as an individual capable of making decisions, even when I was a teenager. Suddenly, this man, who I met when I was already legally an adult, was treating me as though I was a kid. Please tell me that you didn't actually let him come with you. I have 3 sons. My oldest is 25, in the Navy, and married. My middle son is 23 and works as a heavy equipment operator, and my youngest is 17. They are all still my babies. As a mom, it's hard to let go. Honestly though, I would say that my oldest son became an adult when he joined the Navy. My middle son still has the maturity level of a 16-year-old. The minute he gets paid, he is parted from his money 4 days tops. My youngest is 17 and probably the most mature of all of them, but I will consider him grown when he starts college in 2 years. Being the youngest really gives you a chance to watch your siblings and learn from their mistakes. I'm 19 and act more mature than my 30-year-old brother. Reverse realization, i.e., when I, as the child, realized I'd grown up. I took my dad to work one night. I was a pilot for a small freight company. With approval, he could join me in flying my small twin-engine plane. That night the weather was bad, very low clouds, rain, and bumpy. On the first takeoff, we entered into the clouds within seconds of liftoff, 200 feet. I looked to my right and realized that for the first time, my dad was totally reliant on me rather than me being reliant on him. We flew for about an hour in rain and clouds and saw nothing but clouds in between the 2 runways. I proceeded to approach and break out of the clouds about 200 feet above the destination runway, hundreds of miles away. He explained that he thought we were getting close, and he was very impressed when the runway just appeared in front of us. It was a cool feeling. I have cloud to butt plug-in, and this post made me giggle. I saw the moment my mom realized I was an adult. I live a few hours from home and my mom came to visit for a weekend. The first morning she was there, I woke up by skateboarding from my room into the living room. She started the usual motherly rant. "Get off of that. You're going to break something or hurt yourself." Then she had a blank look on her face as she realized it. "You know what? I don't have to pay for you if you get hurt. Skate in your own house. You're a grown man." I'm 27. Well, as a parent, my children will always be my kids. It wasn't one moment, but slow progression. When they did their own taxes was a big moment. Other moments? Realizing they hadn't asked me for money in months, graduating college, asking for advice about their coworkers, handling the boss, etc. Being a parent is the only job where you work hard to make your job useless, not needed. According to my mom, me and my sister are both adults. It's when we started speaking to her like a peer instead of just a parent. I have no idea what that means, but it sounded nice. Apparently, also when I started picking up after myself, which she just informed me that I didn't do this afternoon. Whoops. I talk to my dad if he is my peer about 95% of the time. It basically means that you are letting your mom know what is going on in your life and don't need as much guidance, advice, as you may have needed in previous years past. I've also helped my father join us in this smartphone app-savvy phase of life. He was already pretty tech-savvy and just kind of lost will to learn about the newer stuff on his own. Dad says the best advice I ever gave him was to Google anything he had questions on. Gotta admit, he must be right. I haven't even been asked a question about technology in ages. My mother says she has a hard time seeing me and my siblings as adults. My brother's in the Navy and I'm working full-time building a career, and my sister is still at home sadly, but helping mom out. My mother is my business associate and we still live together. I don't think she's seeing me as an adult anytime soon. Moving out ASAP though. When my son had his son, I saw him holding his boy the way I once held him, and I had this moment of complete, warm, silent peace. I knew that the world would not come to a bad end, that our problems could be solved, and that there would be as many generations in the future as there have been in the past. It was great, and I think about it all the time. This is beautiful. You just made me feel guilty for deciding not to have kids, damn it. Luckily though, I have a bunch of brothers and sisters who've had kids, so at least my mom and dad have that. I'm in my 40s. Parents still haven't figured it out yet, even though I've been married well over a decade, several college degrees, own our own house and vehicles, and pay for everything. Go figure. I'm in the same boat, but gradually it has changed a bit. When my husband turned 40, my dad looked at me and said, "I can't believe you're old enough to be married to a middle-aged man." A few years later, I rented them a house and helped them to move to their last house. Dad was like, "You're a real good helper." He used to say that when I was little. They have reached an age where I come by to clean the house and make sure the bills are paid. I'm parenting them, and I've accepted that they'll never really see me as anyone but the little girl from the picture in the living room taken in 1977.